Okay, so A Good Year, new movie by Ridley Scott, based on a novel by Peter Mayle, who apparently wrote A Year in Provence.
He did?
Which presumably you've read.
No.
No, I haven't read it either. It seemed terribly dull to me. Anyway, story is
extremely popular and very, very successful, and made him a very wealthy man.
Good for him. I hope he's enjoying his...
And then became a very unsuccessful TV programme with John Thorpe.
Did it? Right. Well, this is now a very unsuccessful film with Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe is an eccentric but successful English trading type person who at the beginning of the film...
A trader, as they're known. Yes.
At the beginning of the film is seen, we know it's set in London because we start with a big shot of the gherkin. As we know, this is now a law. If you're making a film that's set in London, you have to have a large shot of the gherkin. And Russell is on the trading room floor telling everybody they've got to do all this, and he does some incredibly wizzo trading stuff, and he's obviously got no heart, and he's got no soul, and he's got no depth, but all he has is the ability to make money. And then it turns out that his lovely uncle, with whom he spent some good times as a child, has departed this world and left behind, guess what, a chateau in France. His immediate reaction is to find out how much it's worth because he wants to get rid of it. It's a funny thing. He goes out to France and he pitches up at the chateau, which he's going to sell. Now, one of two things could happen. Just take a wild guess. Do you think he sells the chateau, takes the money back to the stockroom trading floor and makes a mint? Or do you think that while he's in France, where everyone says quaffs wine, eats croissants in the outdoors, whilst the little breezes and lovely air sweeps over him, he somehow just can't get away from the property. And yet, although he wants to sell it, in fact, it gets under his skin. And he discovers that other than just the ability to buy and sell, he does, in fact, have a residual character which has as much tone, depth, resonance and piquancy as the very wine which is grown in that vineyard. Now, which of those two things do you think happens?
Well, I'm hoping it's the first one, because that sounds
exactly, because that's a short film, and that's the film I'd like to see. He goes out there, he says, yeah, nice vineyard, how much do you want? 5 million, I'm off. But in fact what happens is, of course, there's a problem with selling it, and then he has to hang around, and then somebody turns up who may in fact be his kind of his cousin and half relative, and he has to spend time in the vineyard, in the chateau, and you know what? It all just gets the better of him. There is a number of problems with this. The first one is, and I'm sorry, there's no two ways about it, Russell Crowe is just spectacularly miscast. It's not that Russell Crowe isn't a very versatile actor. I mean, much as occasionally I've heard that he's not the most thrilling of people to be around, you look at his performances in, for example, The Insider, in which he's really good, in which he physically shrinks as a man, and he plays, a weedy little man who somehow discovers something in himself that he didn't, and it's not a heroic performance, but it's a great performance. And then you look at Gladiator, which is a great big strapping, as you said, sandals and armour and swords and lions and, death and destruction, and it begins and ends in Elizabeth. He can do all of those things. And Romper Stomper, of course. In fact, I interviewed Russell Crowe around the time of Romper Stomper when it first came out, in which he plays a Nazi skinhead, and he did very well. So it's not that he's not a versatile performer, but he doesn't do comedy, and he doesn't do English eccentric comedy at all.
Can I just, at that point, bring you this from Derek in Edinburgh?
Go on.
Good year, yes. Storyline that you've seen many times before. Putting the story to one side, the problem with this film is Gladiator. I mean, Russell Crowe. The character is a posh, emotionally repressed, witty English gent, and Russell Crowe isn't. He's a bar-fighting Kiwi. Nothing wrong with that, but we know about him already. So the whole film is like a Kiwi putting on a posh English accent, but only in the way that people do it for a laugh. He's not a comedy actor, and the film is supposed to be a rom-com, and the com he just can't do. I'm sure he could be funny as a Kiwi Aussie character with that kind of humour. He was trying to fill a role that would have been ideal for Hugh Grant, Colin Firth or Cary Grant.
But even if it was any of those performers, and I agree with everything that was said in that, the other problem is that Ridley Scott is not a great comic director either. I mean, Ridley Scott has done character pieces. It's not simply that he can only do action, he can only create worlds. It's not only that he can only do Kingdom of Heaven, he can only do Blade Runner, because he is a better director of actors than he is given credit for. But in this, it just falls flat. It's long, it has no levity to it. It has no sparkle, it has no vim. The rom is not very rom. The com is decidedly uncom. Russell Crowe just walks through the whole thing looking like a man pretending to be Cary Grant. He's got hair's wrong. Oh, here's how you know he's English and he's intelligent. He wears glasses. See, that's always, it's the kind of thing you'd sit there and you go, no, let's not give him glasses in the silly centre part, because that's just too obvious.